Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'll say hello to folks watching on recording. Mel Hauser, use she, they pronouns. I'm the executive director of All Brains Belong. Welcome to Brain Club. Let me share screen and get us oriented to our conversation. Making work for your brain. We've got I think a beautiful panel tonight, bright spotting several of our All Brains Belong community members, learning about how they all navigate this topic. And we'll have the opportunity to hear from folks who are employed by someone, and folks who have started their own business, and folks who are in between on that continuum. So this is, I look forward to sharing this panel with you. Before we get going, just wanted to name that closed captioning is enabled. You just have to toggle it on if you'd like to use it. Depending on your version of Zoom, you might see the live transcript closed captioning icon. If not, look for the more ... and choose show subtitles, or you can choose hide subtitles if you want to turn them off. I know folks who are live with us here. I know that you're all returning Brain Club regulars, but for folks watching on recording, Brain Club is our weekly education program for purposes of demonstrating All Brains Belong's approach to neuro-inclusive culture for purposes of shifting broader community awareness of the issues of importance and concern to the neurodivergent community, so that we can promote new ways of thinking and being, and transform culture by going out into the rest of our worlds, as we, shift our own expectations of what we demand and insist upon seeing in the rest of our lives. Well, we hope that this is a place where you feel safe and supported right from your very first Brain Club. This is not a support group. It's not the right place to make personal requests or address personalized needs. It is not for medical or mental health advice. It is an education program. It's also not a neurodivergent affinity space. Everybody is welcome to come and to learn. So we invite you to listen, to learn, to observe what neuro-inclusive space looks like, and to think about how what you're connecting connects to your life. There is no one right way to participate here at Brain Club. You can have your video on or off. Even if it's on, we don't expect anything of you. We certainly do not expect you to sit still and look at the camera. Feel free to do what needs doing, walk or move or fidget or stim or eat or take breaks or anything else that needs doing. You are welcome to use the chat as we watch our pre-recorded panel. There's never any pressure to directly engage. Observation is a completely valid form of participation. And in addition to affirming all aspects of identity, one of the other ways that we cue safety, make it safe for all folks to participate, is that we think about the group's collective needs over that of any one individual. Tonight's format, we've got a 35-minute pre-recorded panel with 5 of our community members, and we'll wrap up with some take-home points, and that's what tonight will look like. That is my reminder to make sure the chat window is open where I can see it. Lizzie has put in the chat the community agreement. Thanks, Lizzie. So while we watch the video, you are welcome. We actually are joined by most of our panelists are here with us tonight, which is super cool. You're welcome to ask questions or comment in the chat box as you listen about the content. This is a place where you can validate other people's comments that you've heard, or share how something that they've shared has impacted you, or you can ask questions. We just ask that if you are going to use the chat, we ask that you type in the big box only and avoid the reply threads. That will cut down on the bouncing up and down that happens in the chat, especially when it gets moving more quickly. Thanks for doing that. All right. If it's your first time at Brain Club, it's okay to not necessarily understand what's happening here. So please keep coming back. It might take several times to figure it out. Lizzie's going to put in the chat, though, some logistics questions in our frequently asked questions document. I wanted to make an announcement before we get going. All Brains Belong has reopened to new patients. We're starting off with accepting applications from those whose insurance is Blue Cross Blue Shield of Vermont or any of the other Blue Cross Blue Shields. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Vermont is the only local carrier who is promising to protect autistic people's medical records, and that's why we're beginning with Blue Cross Blue Shield, because we feel like it's patient privacy is the most important thing. We are open to folks who live in Vermont who have an established primary care practice and are coming here for support for known or suspected all the things, the constellation of intertwined medical problems that we talk so often about at Brain Club, which are described and listed on the website that Lizzie's linked in the chat. All right, so we are continuing our theme of rest. We won't necessarily be talking about rest directly tonight, but we will be talking about the culture change that comes from not needing to have your path to work or to creation look like everyone else's. And we'll be hearing from our community members about what they're doing. And as always, thank you to everyone who supports Brain Club, who make it possible for us to be able to offer panels like this and to be able to compensate our presenters. Thank you, Brain Club supporters. All right, so why do we talk about work? When we think about unlearning and reimagining systems, we think that, to do anything, we have to do everything. And what we have heard from our community advisory board right from the very beginning in 2022, when they were convened, was the idea that people want to talk about work. And specifically, they wanted to talk about how work was not working for them. And so not only do we do trainings for employers about how to create workplaces where people with all types of brains can get their needs met, we try to support people in pursuing their employment self-actualization. And through Brain Club, we have this really amazing opportunity to bright spot people from within our own community and bring awareness to the really cool work people are doing. What we know is that employment is really hard for a lot of our community. For example, autistic adults are 2.5 to 8 times more likely to be unemployed or underemployed, and that 75% of ADHD adults experience employment-related challenges. We also know that employment and health are related in both directions. And so when we talk about making work for your brain, this is really about health and improving health through accessible employment. So without further ado, let me minimize this. Oh no, I want to not do that yet. Sorry. Go back. Go back. I want to thank our panelists before we watch the video. Thrilled to be joined by Susan Whitehead, academic librarian and business math technology liaison for the Community College of Vermont and Vermont State College's system libraries, as well as the co-founder of the Dyslexic Positive Libraries Initiative. Anya Kalani, who is an intuitive rebirth practitioner and coach and founder of Soul Alchemy Studio, as well as Zeph, who is the founder of Ravenwood Studios and the channel delivering Lightworks Foundry and a tool that they have created called Tapestry of Becoming that we'll get to hear all about. Devora Hannah Pinsoff-DePillis, occupational therapist and craniosacral practitioner who has recently launched her private practice, as well as Matt Mulligan, our former chair of our board of directors, member of our professional advisory board, and a community-based mental health counselor in private practice, as well as the author of the book Tomatoes and Peppers, which we'll be discussing at Brain Club Book Chat next week. Now, without further ado, we will start our video.
Our world isn't created for us, or it does not work for us, because we try to find these spaces that we're able to work from
Thanks, everybody. I forgot to share sound. Oh, interesting. So when I just lost audio is that we were relying on my speaker playing, and then when anybody gets quiet, we realize that I did not actually do the thing of checking the box. Sorry. Oh, brain. Here we go. Let's start over. I think this happens most weeks. Check the box. The share sound box. Sorry about that.
Our world isn't created for us or it does not work for us because we try to find these spaces that we're able to work from, but they basically don't exist. So then we try to create our own, but we struggle. So then because we struggle to create our own, because there are no other spaces necessarily, then we're basically forced to try to make ourselves fit into the box, and it just perpetuates the cycle.
Do you like want to talk about your coaching work? Like we would be happy to spread the word about what you're doing.
I've really just been doing a lot of things with learning somatic work, being able to help with the release of that pent up like energy within the body. And whenever it comes to a lot of this stuff, whenever it comes to mistrust and not having the right language and stuff like that, I feel like a lot of that works within the coaching because there is a lot of kind of like touching on these subjects, but not necessarily really diving into be able to say like, okay, let's give you some tools that might be able to help you moving forward or being able to reframe. I like making people think. I like making people think because I feel like once you have those prompts, then it makes it easier to be able to look at things from a different perspective and potentially see other solutions that you didn't see before.
Some may know me as Deborah Ann, and Devorah Khana is my professional name. I have been an occupational therapist for almost 20 years now. I get to play with children and teenagers and adults, and sometimes even whole families, which is really fun. As an occupational therapist, I help people figure out what feels good, what does their nervous system need, and the word occupation sounds so funny, but for children, their occupation is to play. So basically, I play with them, and then that means I've done my job. I have a few ideas in the back of my head why I do what I do. And with adults, it really is, and teenagers, what's meaningful? What does someone want to be doing? Do you want to be gardening? Do you want to be taking care of a grandchild? Do you want to be taking care of your pet or your health? And sometimes I just help brainstorm from day to day living to actual physically what do people need to support their nervous system. So that's the occupational therapy part of my job. And then I also get to be a cranial sacral therapist. I do a very gentle body work. People are fully dressed. Most are lying down. Kids might be sitting on a ball or playing a game, but it's a very gentle body work to really help reset the nervous system and just remind the nervous system of like, oh, this is what relaxation feels like. And so I often do a series of those sessions. Again, sometimes a kid, sometimes a parent, depending on who is open to receiving, and then we go from there.
And one of the cool things about the tool that I'm putting together is that it's going to enable people to help map the path that they're walking. Because one of the things that people struggle with is knowing where they're at on their path. They're like, oh my God, I'm so far behind. I should be so far ahead. No, you are exactly where you are supposed to be. Stop, breathe. You're walking a labyrinth. There's only one way in, only one way out. All you need to do is keep putting one foot in front of the other, and it's okay. Tapestry of Becoming is the story that tells the path walking, teaches the principles, teaches the tools. The story is going to be told. The story is going to be free. Anybody can interact with it. It is going to be, you're going to love this. I am taking everything I've learned from designing accessible training and building it into this experience. So there will be a plain language version of this. It will be neurodivergent informed. It's going to be told in little vignettes or snippets that can be read in 2 or 3 minutes at a time. Some content will be longer, but there'll be a plain language version that's accessible to go along with it. It's going to be LGBTQ plus informed. It's going to be trauma informed, because fundamentally what this path is a return to our most divine and authentic selves. And in order to do that, you need to balance the light and the dark in you. So what it means is that sometimes you're going to need to turn over stones, and stuff is going to come out with claws and pinchers, and you need to know how to deal with that stuff. And so we are building a trauma-informed safe space where people can safely explore.
I'm Susan Whitehead. I'm a member of the ABB community, and I'm an academic librarian. I'm the Business, Math, and Technology Liaison for the Community College of Vermont and also Vermont State College System Libraries. I always loved reading, always loved being in libraries, and it was kind of a natural evolution of that, just happiness in libraries. I really like helping people and feeling like I'm making a positive contribution. And, it's a really great place to be there, especially because of the people. It's a neurodiverse, neuro-inclusive employer, which is really critical.
My name's Matt Mulligan. I live in Barrie. I work as a therapist. My main focus is helping people understand the relationship they have with their experience. I help them understand in their own lives what's true and what isn't, and then what choices they can make in the face of that new information to create a more satisfying life for themselves. Our lives are always about a journey home to ourselves, and defining who we are because of who we are, not because of what the world might, or the messages we might receive across our lifetime. My life brought me to the work eventually, and I know that sounds cliche, but I made a choice, a very direct choice, to go back to graduate school. And I did that, and I went back to graduate school, and I was studying and I was struggling, and the school suggested that I get a neuropsych evaluation. It was revealed that I had a learning disability that I never knew about. And then I got accommodations, and I got a 60 credit master's degree in the face of a narrative that had always told me I couldn't learn well, I didn't work hard. And I'm not saying that's every person at every moment, but the negative messages stick with us.
Are you also working with folks who are also like late discovering their neurodivergence?
Mel, I'll say there are so many of us.
The Vermont Library Association on Monday was out there on the conference planning committee and also presenting. And we did, what was your experience like learning to read as a child? And we have easy, fun, magical. I required, evidence-based literacy. I experienced fear and shame. And then level 5, which is, I'm still, I haven't yet learned how to read, spell, and write fluidly. I'm still developing these skills. And I'm a 4-5, which is radical for a librarian, to put it mildly. But actually, it's about 28% of the population is still learning fluency, the latest national study. So if I can go up there and put my star in the 4 and 5, then everyone else feels free to put their stars wherever they are.
You have been an occupational therapist for 20 years. Recently, you have launched your private practice. Can you talk about, the process of sort of deciding how to, deciding that you wanted to do that, and what does that what has that looked like as far as getting started?
Sure. I started the cranial sacral practice first because it was an easy on the side. I could just do it on the weekends, rent a space, and offer my services as people needed it. Sometimes OT clients also needed it, so it just fit well. I had been in the school district, a couple different districts here in Vermont, and I can say I love working with kids and being in the school, but the intensity of the number of hours and number of kids and number of reports and number of meetings was like too much for me and my nervous system at the end. So the private practice gives me the flexibility and fluidity of like how many kids I'm seeing, how much space I have between clients now. And truthfully, I stopped doing evaluations. I was able to let districts do evaluations recently, and then I just get to follow through with the treatment and recommendations. I'm still figuring out that balance, but partly with listening to people at All Brains Belong, figure out what do I really like to do, what's easy and that I'm good at, as opposed to where is my struggle, and then let someone else handle that part.
If there's the narrative that like this should be easy all the time, and if I were meant to do this, it would be easy. It's like, you just made that up. That's not a thing.
That was quite eye-opening when several other people said, no, it's really hard. And in the beginning, it is harder. And I know that again when I work with young children, but I didn't give myself that grace. I thought I should know how to do it, or maybe I did it once a long time ago, so I should just be able to do it again. No.
Shortly after my shamanic initiation, I was in a very isolated community. I tried really hard to make friends. It was a very xenophobic community where people didn't want to know anybody they didn't want to know. Fundamentally, most of my communications and interactions were via Yahoo IM. So over the course of my first year, 2, 3 years, I documented my path religiously. My intuitive coach told me to write, so I wrote everything. Basically, I found myself in a situation where there were legal actions being taken against the company, and I was caught in the crossfire. I had no authority to be able to resolve the situation. Out of this, I wound up going into a really deep panic event. I have panic disorder with agoraphobia, and when I go into panic events, literally I can't sleep. So I had been using ChatGPT AI, and what I found is that the AI became a really powerful tool to help me manage my panic.
Because so with meeting access needs, you gave me that prompt, and so I'm thinking about it, and that's so complex. You got to identify them, what's working, and are there solutions when they're not? You need to communicate them, you need to fund them, you need to implement them, and you need to change them when they're not doing that. And even just one, identifying that, that's like really difficult. You know, for a lot of jobs, it takes at least a year for someone to really be at their best, like working at full capacity, basically, understanding the organizational culture and the people and everything else. It takes a long time to learn that, even if you have a lot of experience. So when you're just chewing through your employees and, you know, it's so not worth it. And just having a culture of flexibility, of support, of collaboration, it's just so much better for everyone. And if you get rid of the nonsense and the noise and just concentrate on supporting each other and like being there for people, it just everything goes better.
An environment and be like, you're too loud, you're too interrupty, you're too like what like I can condemn my environment. But when I'm trying to create my space and I am having a hard time, the self-judgment that comes in that context in many ways feels deeper and more painful.
Oh yeah, because and it's because of those programs, those voices that we have been heard that we've heard of or heard, excuse me, for so long that have become our own inner voice. And it's difficult to try to both unlearn that, but then also being able to give ourselves grace with what we're dealing with, um, because of everything that we deal with, and then having to try to find our own place in society and the like. Um, yeah, it's not fun.
Because when we're growing up, um, we perceive the world perceiving us, and that's how we form our identity. The only problem with that is that the stories are that we believe about ourselves are very often completely untrue.
Instead of listening to your body and like actively like knowing or owning like, this is what's going on, you're told so many times that it's not, you don't have an issue, or you're treated as neurotypical or able-bodied or whatever the case may be. And it gets to the point where that voice becomes your own. And then there is that, that mistrust. And then there is, um, even like self-deprecation in general. And it isn't until, at least in my perspective, it isn't until there's a point where someone actually can validate you like from the outside that it finally kind of clicks.
And that's why we want to that's why we started doing these spotlights, because it is about representation. You see someone else like figuring it out and still being in struggle. It's not like you figure it out and then you're like one and done about it. So I'm wondering if you can speak to, as someone who started a business.
Hmm.
You've never done that before, so you
Cool.
started a business and you're doing the thing, and you're
Hmm.
like figuring out your own access needs
Yep.
and making choices hopefully that are furthering those. Can you speak about that process?
Sure. Wow, it was hard. Um, as I look back, I didn't know what I didn't know, and and I persevered anyway. And moving through the world in an atypical way, people like me, we always push back against normative systems.
Many community members who are stuck, just stuck in their employment situation. Their access needs are not being met. They don't really know what their access needs are, but they're just like being stuck. And I think it is helpful to hear how community members like figure out how to do work. So
Yeah,
that
because that's like a huge part of our life, you know. It's like if you break up your day into a pie chart, work is like a huge chunk. So,
totally like a pie chart of your life.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And so like if you don't have a system or, an approach to figuring that part out, that's a big chunk of your pie chart. Do you have any advice for someone who is struggling in an employment environment where they kind of recognize there's a mismatch between their access needs and what they're doing? Like, do you have advice for people like that?
I mean, I think being compassionate with yourself and leaning into the ABB community and other positive communities, as much as you can, working to undo ableism, controlling your exposure within the employment to the best of your ability to the negativity and discrimination. If there's any way you can avoid that or limit communication, that can be super helpful. Um, Also, one thing that's really helpful if you are stuck or in a difficult time is to think like, how many balls can I put down? And I take this from How to Keep House While Drowning, which I'm a librarian. I recommend books. I'm sorry, that's what I do. But it's fantastic. So sure, you could wash your dishes, but if you can afford to buy paper plates, use them, and that will buy you that much, energy and time and cognitive load every day. And ideally, you're like buying yourself some mental space to go beyond just treading water or treading water and drowning, to buy some space to think ahead to what's not working, like what could be working.
I think the first part, the hardest part, is to realize that you're stuck. Especially if you have a tendency to slip into depression like I do. Depression, it's like you can slip into it and be in it for months before you realize it. But I believe that the more people understand themselves, when they understand what their genuine capabilities are, when they understand what their genuine limitations are, then they can establish boundaries that secure safe space for them. And being aware of your boundaries, like I know that I can't work with people on a one-on-one basis anymore.
I look back on, a career of many years where I worked in more normative systems, and it worked well for me until it didn't.
And, think about all the people who have never interacted with someone who's being authentic in terms of naming the struggle, right? Like by naming the struggle, you become liberated from the struggle. It can still be hard, but there's not that extra layer of like, I hope nobody finds out. I hope no one discovers how truly defective and deficient I am.
Right, right. There's you're living in fear. And it's not like the fear goes away, in some ways it's there, but there's not, it's no way to live in the closet, in any closet.
Totally.
And this feeling of I'm human garbage, and sooner or later they're gonna find out, and I'm gonna get loaded into the back, with the trash bags, I think is so a profoundly horrible way to live.
Yes.
And, the amazing thing is that no one can help you when you're living in shame and fear.
So many people who they're in work situations that are unsafe. Yours was particularly unsafe. They're in unsafe work environments or other environments, and they don't have access to the parts of their brain that are necessary to plan, to ideate, to interpret, to put it all together, all that stuff. They don't have that.
If somebody asked me right off the top of my head, it would be really hard for me to come up with accommodations that I need right up off the top of my head. But if I were to spend some time thinking about it, I think that would be really helpful to keep a running list of, oh, I discovered this about myself today.
Absolutely. And I think that there's a lot of people who it's hard for them to keep a list of the things that are helpful to them. Sometimes it starts with, let's keep a running list of all the times I struggle. And so
Right.
you keep both lists. The idea is you want to develop self-awareness from both angles. But sometimes we can find that like the parts where oh yeah, well I guess that may be really you don't necessarily attribute it to an unmet access need when something doesn't work, but that's really what it is almost all the time.
Having to essentially fight the system in order to be able to find what works for us and what can actually what we um where we will actually be able to fit in.
Idea of I don't have to do the thing that the system's telling me I have to do, the part that drains my battery. Like, what is the work that's uniquely mine to do, that I can do more effortlessly as part of, meeting my own access needs or, figuring out what that looks like and really what even are your access needs based on what drains your battery and what does not.
Right. Well, and I've been in group meetings with you, and then specifically Boost, we really started talking about access needs and starting my own private practice. Like, it's not like I'm dealing with a boss anymore. I do have clients, but figuring out, I'll use the word again, what's easy for me. And for example, talking, I love to talk to people. It is the easiest way for me to do it. And other people in the Boost group were like typing emails and either when do you do it or how soon, and this whole like pressure around emails. I can't even formulate my ideas always on the computer. I literally still write things on paper first. I'm trying to talk to text, but that was huge. So then in the last few weeks, I was like, I'm going to leave an audio message for a client. I'm going to it's been amazing. And I feel like they hear what they want to hear. And I haven't gone through like struggles of like, how do I say it? Did I get the sentence? Like email is like stressful for me.
Like for a while, I was feeling very exhausted and frustrated after work and not really like knowing why. Um, I think one of the causes was that I was working on a tiny laptop. And so I was spending so much time and energy and patience trying to find the thing, whatever that thing was. And now I have three giant computer screens arrayed in front of me from like all the way over here to all the way over here. Everything has a place and is visible at all times. And I have side by side windows, and I even have the same document open in two windows in two places. Zero working memory expended, zero cognitive stress expended. It just frees up so much more of myself to be like present and not be like constantly like, where is the thing?
For the longest time, I had that normative idea of the 5-day work week. I needed 2 days off. And then a little while ago, I finally said, I don't know what's not working here for me, but something isn't. And I'm going to put that idea on a shelf, and I'm going to try seeing clients 7 days a week. And it changed everything.
What is coming up for me about this conversation is thinking about authenticity as an access need. I have an access need to interact authentically. And when I'm in environments where I can't do that, I am not able to do my best work or be my best self.
Yeah, and that goes all the way back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The actualization is the authenticity at the top, because when you find your core, if you don't know who you are, you cannot have an authentic relationship with somebody. If you don't know who you are, you can't actualize yourself, because what you're actualizing may not actually be a core part of yourself, and you may wind up with tons of frustrations. That authenticity is the key that unlocks so many doors.
Right, because truth, I think that we didn't get this on recording before, but just, thinking about truth, transparency as the way forward. And I think what we see in this community, I think a lot is self-actualization feels so far away. People don't have their basic needs met, even just human connection, feels unsafe.
Mhm.
The foundation of the pyramid is not met, don't feel safe, can't connect. But it's like for a lot of people, when they feel safe and when they are able to access community and engage, they discover things about their selves. They like develop that some of the self-awareness path toward authenticity through the connection with other people, but it's very hard to get started.
Trying to find this great quote that's really moved me, and I'm gonna, try and paraphrase it from my brain, but it was it's about authenticity, which was something that I've never valued in my life and never put any energy towards. In fact, I really put my energy towards non-authenticity. Um, but this is something that I am getting better at. And, it says, when you show up as your authentic self, you make space for others to do the same. And I think that's profoundly true. I think when you came out, with All Brains Belong, I was like, what are these weirdos doing? They're so like, what? I'm like, well, I'm not them. I'm in the normal camp, of course. But you were so courageous and brave, and showed me so much. It really gave me a lot of courage myself to start speaking out, understanding myself, and speaking out for others as well. And now I'm out, you know, at work. I'm really, through my presentations, I'm out on both the state and the national stage. So it is hard and it is scary to be out, but I also have never felt better about myself.
For me, I had to even just learn to talk about what I want to be doing. That was huge.
Language is hard, but having others that have that language just makes it so much easier for us to be able to both have that sort of therapeutic catharsis of like, oh, so this is what what that actually looks like, or this is what I've been trying to describe for so long. And in that same line of the therapeutic response, there's also a bit of growth there too, because not only do you have the words to describe this phenomena that you've not been able to for so long, but then now it's like, okay, now that I have the words to be able to describe it, now I'm able to move forward and actively try to help myself push past this obstacle or whatever the case may be.
The concept of how long does something take to like really start your own business. Again, I was in this boost group, which other people were in this phase of like starting a business or how to figure it out. It takes longer than you think. And then several normalize like those first 6 months, that first year, everything's new. It's a first time. It takes longer. And of course, prior to hearing that, I had been beating myself up. And now it's like, oh, I haven't done this before. It's okay. It's another first. I think the rewards are completely worth it because, at least for me, this is totally ADHD, PDA, like autonomy, flexibility, do it my way, my thing, and then work with the people that I'm comfortable working with. So I get to set it up. And I say all that with a great smile. I mean, some days, yes, it's like, oh my gosh, maybe I should just be in an office, but I'm too stressed and too tired if I had an actual job that was the exact same every day. That's me.
Totally.
Yeah.
So like so you have the autonomy and flexibility, and you set it up and you can change it at any time. Like without any, just like boom, I'm gonna change it today.
Right.
So like that kind of flexibility is a very big deal.
And so again, I'd be in these group visits, whether it was a regular medical group about ADHD, but I also was in Boost, which really helped me for my own business. But that was where I really figured out how ADHD plays. It's like, what do I avoid and what do I love to do? And I'm not the only person who has this list. And like, it was just amazing. I think that's my bottom line in the group. I'm not the only one, XYZ. It's like, oh, thank you. Yeah.
There's something about that, right? Like society sends us these messages is that we are the only one struggling. You like look around and people like look like they're just like doing life. And then you come to these group medical appointments and all the people are like, me too, that's hard. And you're like, oh, that's interesting. I've never met a person for whom this particular thing is hard. I don't have to like hide the thing. And I just automatically like the shame narrative. I can start unpacking that as soon as I realize I'm not the only one.
Right. I just caught it. There was a day you and Lizzie talked about something you had to get done, how it had been avoided, how you then approached it in a new way. And I was like, wow, now there's a chance. If you two could share the struggle and then a new way to do it, I was like, oh, okay, I'm willing to try again.
And that's really interesting, right? Because for Lizzie and I, the fact that we in real time are acknowledging to each other that the thing is hard, we know that it's hard because of unmet access needs, and then we can problem solve right there. But the idea, like that initial, this is hard, if we save so much time not getting like sidetracked in the shame narrative. Totally. Totally. And I think that like one of the things about this brain club program is the whole audience is like people who everything you just said is their, like they feel that deeply, and yet they don't know other people who have ever given language to that. So it's the idea that you show up, you hear someone describe something that like is reflecting back your own reality to you, and there's something just so therapeutic about that. How can people get in touch with you to explore maybe working together?
So right now, I don't have a website. I do have my email that that I use for.
How can folks who hear this and this is resonating with them and they are interested in reaching out, that maybe they might want to work with you? How do people reach and connect with you?
There's a couple ways, and I figure we can put it in the chat or
People can reach me through my profile on psychologytoday.com. And there are various ways that they can reach out through that.
Can you Substack to start telling my story before I have a full website? So if people get into my Lightworks Foundry email box, I can let them know when I launch the Substack, and then they can subscribe to the Substack and get all the information from there.
We just actually created a Celebrate Neurodiversity display, which was curated in part by the ABB community. So, it's pretty awesome.
Thing I hope for everybody is through their lives and their experiences, they grow beyond anything, any messages that have been reductive, and they find strength in their struggle while they move toward their purpose, and that they find their purpose and they find their people. People say, should I take a chance? And I always say, if it's a healthy one, yes. We all deserve to create the life that works for us.
What an amazing group of people. I'm going to share screen again, get names up on the screen so that we can thank our panelists one more time. Thank you to Susan Whitehead, Anya Kalani, Saf, Devorah Hanna Pinsoff-DePillis, and Matt Mulligan. Thank you so much for sharing your stories with us and showing us what's possible. And with that, thank you all so much for being here. And we look forward to seeing you next week, where we'll be doing a book chat on Matt Mulligan's book, Tomatoes and Peppers. Thanks, everybody. Have a good week. Bye.